Hello, everybody. This is Rich Harshaw. How you doing? We are going to start this webinar in just a few minutes. Not a few minutes, probably about 1 minute. So just giving a few more people a chance to get on here. We're going to get started here momentarily. So just hang on another minute. While you're waiting, why don't you type into the chat your name and where you're coming to me from today. Chat it up. Let's go. Then we're going to get started here in just a second. All right. Well, what a non what a non-participatory group we have. I've got two people that have volunteered their name and location. I've got JC in Sacramento. Okay, the shaming has let a few come on. Sorry, I didn't mean to shame you, but it was kind of funny. Kevin Cassidy in Detroit. Kelly from Green Bay. How you doing? Let's see. Gord. Oh, okay. Gord from Alberta. Gotcha. Nice to have you. Bree, hello. Jason from, let's see, New York. Steve. I thought you weren't going to make it, Steve, but there you are. And let's see, we've got a few more. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Deanna from Austin. Hello. Christy from well, I don't know where you're from. Shelly from Green Bay. I think it might have said that. Susie, hello. Laura, Shelly, I already said you guys. Let's see. Oh, yes. Amy, Christine, Nick, lots of people. All right. Let's get going here. And I'm going to make a kind of an announcement slash statement before we go too far on here. I've got two different audiences. Hang on, let me make sure we're on record mode here. That would be bad if we weren't. Let's see. Recording. I think we're recording. Where does it say if we're recording? Rich, let's see. Says recording on my end. Okay, good. Thank you for that. All right, I've got two different audiences on the webinar with me today. Audience number one is I have invited pretty much all of the radio reps that Level 10 Contractor works with all over the country to attend this webinar. Thank you for attending if that describes you. The reason that I have done that is I want you to get a feel for what we're all about and what we do and how we look at things and how we deal with our clients, give you kind of a behind the scenes peek. Also, perhaps an opportunity that we can work with you to help you increase your radio sales. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. The second audience I have is my normal audience, which is remodeling contractors from all over the country. Thank you for attending if that describes you. And the purpose that I've invited you to this is because I want you to understand what it is we do and how we do it so that you can potentially benefit from the experience that we're at Level 10 averaging on behalf of my clients since about 1998, I want to say. So what is that, 25 years, something like that? We've got currently under our agency somewhere in the neighborhood of about $9 to $10 million in radio and TV billings. We're not going to be talking about TV today so much as radio, but just to give you an idea of what we do over the course of the 25 years that I've been doing this, literally hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars have been run through this agency. So we're coming from a place of experience here, but I'm also going to treat this as if you don't have any experience at all. I want to kind of take you and speak to you as if you were a 5-year-old, so to speak, so that you could really understand the fundamentals here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this. I want to take a minute and mention two of the sponsors that are responsible for helping us fill this room today with all of the people that have attended. One Click Contractor, Project Map It. These are some of our podcast sponsors. If you want to know more about them, you can go to One Click Contractor, projectmapit.com. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about them other than to say One Click Contractor is a fantastic tool that can help you automate all of the paperwork in your business, from contracts to financing to proposals. It's all digital and it's all right there on one platform. Very, very easy to work with. It's kind of a next level type tool for your company. Project Map It, also a fantastic tool. Completely different though. It takes a map, puts it on your website, and all of the jobs that you do, it puts a pin in the map. You can put photos and reviews that go with those different jobs, and it allows you to provide social proof for people that are looking to do business with you. I recommend you look at both of these, One Click Contractor and Project Map It. Also, if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear their advertisements from time to time. So here's what I want you to do as we get going on this. I want you to think of, well, I want you to kind of close your eyes. If you are driving, please do not close your eyes. Otherwise, I want you to close your eyes. And here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about when you were about 10 years old. And I want you to think about the house that you lived in, or apartment as the case may be, but I'll just use the word house. The house that you lived in when you were 10 years old. I want you to think about it. I want you to put yourself in that house, let's say watching television when you were 10 years old at that house, when you were about that age. I want you to look around. What do you see? Do you see some of the old furniture that was in that house at the time? What about the people who are in that house? Is your mom and dad there, your siblings? Maybe your parents aren't there, maybe they work, maybe they're divorced, you didn't see them, who knows? Maybe you don't have any siblings, but look around and see who's there. What do you hear? What do you see? Now here's a good question for you. What do you feel? What do you feel when you put yourself as a 10-year-old in your house? All right, now we're gonna shift scenes. I want you to think about the first time you fell in love, the first time that you really, had it for somebody, and you know that feeling, right? Everybody's been there. And I want you to think about what that felt like. What did that situation look like? Put yourself in a specific situation. Maybe it was a date that you were on. Maybe it was an event that you attended. What did that person look like? How did you, here comes the word again, feel? All right, now let's go. Let's just do one more of these just for fun. I want you to put yourself, I want you to think of the best vacation that you ever went on, the best one, the most either fun, or maybe it was because of the other people that were there, but I want you to think of the very best vacation you're ever on. And maybe you're thinking, oh, geez, man, I've been on so many and they're all great. Just think of one specific one. I want you to do the same thing again. I want you to look around, find a specific moment in your mind from that vacation. I want you to think about it. And I want you to put yourself in that situation. Who's there? Who do you see? What do you hear? What environment is it? Are you on the beach? Are you in a restaurant? Is it a hotel room? Is it a monument like the Eiffel Tower? What is it? And here's the question one more time. How do you feel when you put yourself into that situation? Okay, now I want you to hold on to all of those thoughts and feelings. I'm going to come back to them. That's just to kind of get us started. I will come back to that. Trust me. Here's what I want you to know now. Here's who Level 10 Contractor is. I'm the owner and the founder of this company. Been in business since 1994 under different iterations. We've been called Level 10 Contractor since about 2019. Prior to that, it was called Monopolize Your Marketplace. We used to be a general marketing agency way back in the day, but more recently, since about 2005, so it's been a while, we specialize in remodeling and home services. We do a lot with interior and exterior remodelers. Also, we do a lot with home services companies like HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and so forth. Worked with some of the biggest and most successful companies in the industry. I could tell stories, but I won't. Here's what we do. We help contractors with strategy. We build websites. We do search engine optimization. We also do digital advertising. And more to the point today, we help these clients with traditional advertising, which is radio and television. Okay. And again, we're going to focus on radio today. I wrote a book called Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. I'm going to be giving away 3 copies at the end of the webinar. So you have to stick around. If you have to peel out early, you will not be eligible to win the book. All right. Also, I do a daily podcast. Been doing it since September of 2019. That puts us at over 1,300 episodes and counting. If you have any questions on any kind of marketing things that relates to contractors whatsoever, I promise you there are multiple episodes on the Level 10 Contractor Daily podcast. Look it up. If you're not familiar with it, you need to be familiar with it. I also do another podcast called Marketing Matters. I do this in conjunction with Qualified Remodeler Magazine. It comes out twice a month, so you can check that one out too. Now, we're going to do a poll here. The poll is not what does a pyramid look like. I'm going to run this poll right now, launch the poll, and I'm going to ask you a question. And please, if you are a media rep, okay, if you're a radio rep, please do not participate in this poll because I want to see what the remodeling contractors have to say. So let me find the poll. There it is. I'm going to launch it. The question is, let's see. What is your experience with radio advertising? Maybe you've never tried it. Maybe you've tried it and quit because it didn't work. Maybe you've had some success, but not enough to keep going. Maybe you're doing it now with some success. Maybe you're doing it now with a lot of success. Let's see what you have to say about this. Again, if you are a radio sales rep who's participating in this call, please do not vote because you would probably skew the results to say, it is awesome and it always works, which I hope that's true, but it's not really what we're trying to measure here. Okay, let me just give this another second or two. All right, I'm going to close the poll and let's share the results. The results, 38% have never tried it. 6% tried it and quit because it didn't work. 38% tried it quite. I don't know if I said that right. Had some success, but not enough to keep going. And then we've got what 19% of you that are doing it with some success or with a lot of success. By the way, only 6% are having a lot of success with it. So I think this is pretty typical. This is pretty typical. When I start talking to people about radio, this is pretty typical that either you've never tried it or you've tried it. Look at that the biggest two, never tried it and tried it and it didn't really work. Let's see, if we add all those up, it's what, like close to 80%. All right, now we're gonna hide the poll. We're gonna get back to the webinar. And keep that in mind. Here's the 3 common objections I get to radio. Hear these things all the time. Number 1 is nobody listens to radio anymore. Number 2 is I don't listen to radio anymore. And since I am the arbiter of what happens and what is realistic in the world, then therefore, if I don't listen to radio, then therefore probably nobody else does anyway. So it's really the cousin to number 1. And then number 2, we tried it and it didn't work. So I'm going to overcome these objections. First thing I'm going to show you is 92%. This is according to multiple polls. There's been multiple polls that you can look up, and according to one that I found online, 92% of adults listen to the radio in a given week. 92% of adults. Now, you can see if you look at some of these different polls that this is going to fluctuate. I think the lowest one that I saw was about 88% and 93%, but this is about the range. Let's call it roughly 90% of adults are listening to the radio at least once per week. Here's what the research shows. Radio, again, if you look in the dark green, 92% for all adults. If you look at the different age groups, it does vary a little bit. You can see that the boomers, you know, they like to listen to it a lot. And that's more than TV, smartphones, PCs, TV connected devices. Now, this doesn't mean that any one of these things is or is not a good advertising media for you. That's not the point of this conversation. The point right now is to let you know that people still listen to the radio. This idea that nobody listens to radio. What about podcasts? What about audio books? What about Sirius FM and all these other things? Yes, they are also popular and people are listening to those, but radio has not gone away. It has been very, very resilient. The number of radio stations in the United States, this is a chart from 1990 when there was let's call it about 11,000 up to now. There's about 16,000. And it looks like it's about peaked out maybe. Who knows? We'll have to look at this again in 10 years, but it's not like radio stations are dying and going away. They're not. There are still a ton of people listening to the radio. So you need to get this out of your mind that nobody's listening to the radio. Nobody listens to radio anymore. Well, look at these stats. More Americans listen to the radio than use Facebook each week, 92% versus about 72%. Adults listen to 104 minutes per day, about 12 hours a week, and it holds the highest share of collective trust across advertising channels. In other words, when people hear stuff on radio, according to the data, which is what, musicalpursuits.com, people actually trust it. Now, let's talk about size. Does size matter? Of course, the illustration that goes with does size matter is an ant holding a leaf, because that's the one that everybody thinks of. Size does not matter. And what I'm talking about is audience size. So here's what people say. Well, yeah, people are still listening, but they don't listen as much. So I don't know if I want to be on the radio. Well, if you buy it correctly, and that's a big if, then you're only paying for the people who are actually listening anyway. Okay, so think about it this way. If there was 20,000 people that listened to a station 10 years ago, and let's say that the audience has fallen in half, just hypothetically speaking. So now there's only 5,000 people listening. You say, well, geez, that's only 5,000 people. It used to be 10. That is not as good, right? Well, guess what? When you pay the radio station, you're only paying for the people who are actually listening. You're not paying for the 5,000 who quit listening over the last 10 years. So who cares? Anything that you do from an advertising standpoint, any medium that you go on is only going to reach a part of the audience, of the total potential audience that you want to sell to. There is nothing that is going to reach everybody. And if there was something that reached everybody, and if every advertising media reached everybody, guess what? You couldn't afford all of it anyway. You've got a limited budget. You can't afford to do everything that you could possibly think of doing. So the idea that because I can't reach everybody with radio, therefore I don't want to do it, applies actually to everything. And also, again, like it says on the screen, you're only paying for the people who are actually listening. Okay, we do all of our buys over here at Level 10 Contractor based on the key metric of CPM, cost per thousand. CPM, M is a Roman numeral, I believe. I'm not big on Roman numerals, but that's what it stands for, cost per thousand. So if there's 10,000 people listening and the spot cost is $100, then the CPM is 10 bucks. Okay, it costs you $10 for every 1,000 people you reached. Now, if the audience falls to 5,000, like I said in the example a minute ago, then the spot is only going to cost $50. So what do you care? You're only getting half the people, but it only costs half the price. Keep this in mind. We'll come back to it. Stop worrying about audience size. It is a 100% non-factor. In fact, one of the things that I'll talk about, well, I'm talking about it right now. We will see situations where there is a huge station that has a big audience and everybody's like, yeah, we want to go on that station because everybody listens to it. And meanwhile, we'll find a station that's number 3 or 4 or 11 or 16 down in the rankings, and we'll buy that station because it has a lower cost per thousand. There's less demand for their inventory for those. It's a supply and demand game. So if there's less demand for the inventory, they might sell those for a smaller CPM. Would you rather spend $10 CPM and reach a lot of people, or would you rather pay, let's say, a $5 CPM and reach a smaller audience? Okay, at the end of the day, it's just math, and you've got to figure out how much money you have and how many people you want to reach. And then if you understand this concept of CPM, you'll be in the money, okay? Now, here's the objection. I never listen to the radio. I have one rebuttal to that. Here it is. No one cares. It doesn't matter what you do. You cannot make yourself the judge of what everybody else is going to do, okay? You just can't. So I'm going to move on. Tried radio and it didn't work. Let's go over this objection. Here's the probable reasons why it didn't work. Probably you were on the wrong station, and or you didn't buy it correctly, so you were paying too much for what you're getting, or you took the wrong approach with your ads, probably a direct response approach, which I'll talk about a little bit later today. Or here's a big one, your ads sucked. You ever think about that? Oh, no, our ads were great. Well, how do you know? Well, because the radio station helped me write it. With all due respect to all the radio reps that are on this webinar today, the last thing you want is the radio station writing your ads, because that is not their specialty. It is not their forte. They do not understand your company, and they are going to write ads that, let's just say nicely, they suck, okay? And the ads that you're probably putting together, or your agency is probably putting together, they're also going to probably suck. Not in all cases, but in a lot. And I'm going to spend a lot of time as we get towards the end of this webinar talking about how to make ads. But here's, you can't think when it didn't work, so therefore it doesn't work. That is like a guy going out on the golf course, taking the ball out, getting his club, swinging it, and he's terrible at golf. And he says, well, golf doesn't work. Golf is not a thing that actually works. No. You just don't know how to execute properly the golf club to strike the ball so that it goes where you actually want it to go. The same thing is almost always true for radio. Now, there are some cases where people are on the radio and they shouldn't be, and I'll cover those in just a minute. All right, how do we get success in radio? How many steps are there? Number one, determine if radio even makes sense for you. And guess what? Radio does not make sense for all of you. It just doesn't. And I'm going to help you understand how and why it does not make sense, or it does make sense. I'm going to go through that with you here in just a minute. Also, we got to set proper expectations. So if it does make sense for you to go on radio, if you go into it with the wrong expectations, you will get pissed and you will quit and you will say it doesn't work if your expectations are wrong. Okay, and I'm going to show you what the proper expectations are in just a minute. Also, you've got to choose the right stations. You've got to negotiate a good deal. This is much, 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 much more difficult than you think. Trust me, you've got on this very webinar, I've got a whole army of radio reps that are listening to me right now, and they are trained as professionals to understand how to negotiate specifically radio. And you very likely have no experience negotiating radio, and you think, well, geez, it doesn't matter. I'm a good negotiator, so I'm going to go in and negotiate radio. No, you're not. They're going to wipe the floor with you. And the reason is because you have to understand an entire language that surrounds this topic of radio before you can effectively negotiate. And you probably don't speak the language. Meanwhile, they're professionals at speaking the language. It's like trying to go and negotiate with somebody selling something in France when you don't speak French. It's going to be very difficult. You're going to think you're going to do good and you're not. I'll talk about that briefly as we go on. And then here's the main thing that I really want you to see today is creating awesome ads. We'll get to all of this. This is kind of our table of contents for what we're going to cover today. So, is radio right for me? The determining factors. Number one and number two. We've got to look at the size of the market that you're in, and we've got to look at the size of your company. Now, I work with a lot of remodeling companies. Some of them are very small. Some of them, what I would consider small-ish, but growing, maybe 1 to 3 million. Then you've got companies that are like 3 to 5 or 6 million. Then you got the 6 to 10s and the 10 and up. Well, here's the problem. The audience size is going to determine how much it's going to cost. So if you're in Houston, for instance, and you're a $3 million company, okay, so let's think about this. You're a $3 million company, and overall, you're allocating 10% of your sales to marketing in general, okay? So that's $300,000. Let me get my calculator out here. $300,000 and divided by 12 months. So you've got $25,000 a month that you're going to spend. Well, I'm going to guess that radio is not the only thing that you're ever going to do. So let's say that best case scenario, you allocated half of your budget to radio, which is $12,500. Well, if you're in Houston, which is the 6th largest market in the country, it's going to be hard to put a relatively small amount of money into radio and have it do something that is going to be worthwhile, okay? Now, on the other hand, let me give you a different example. And I know we've got a rep on here that is from Appleton/Green Bay. I've got a client. I'll profile them as we go through this a little bit later. They're a $500,000 company. Now, in the grand scheme of the companies that we do business with, a level 10 contractor, remodeling companies, $500,000 in sales is absolutely tiny. This is on the very, very small company. This guy's been in business like 2 years, I think. Appleton, though, happens to be the 139th largest market in the country. In other words, it's a very tiny market. Here's what that means. The audience sizes that are listening to the radio in Appleton are not very big. In fact, there are probably stations in Houston that have more audience than Appleton has humans, okay? Are you starting to follow what I'm saying here? So we can actually take a company that's very small, $500,000, in a market that's tiny like Appleton, and we can actually make it work. Whereas a much larger company, $3 million in Houston, is going to be very, very difficult. Okay, if you're in Houston and you're doing 3 million in sales and you say, hey, I want to do radio, I'm probably going to steer you in some other directions that are going to make more sense for you at this particular moment. Now, if you're a $10 million company and you're sitting in Houston, okay, we've probably got a conversation. If you're a $5 million company in Houston, we can probably have a conversation. We can probably start to find some stations that make sense. But I just want you to know that this is the major thing that I'm looking at. How big is your company versus how big is the market that you're in? Because if you're in a big market, it's going to be harder. If you're in a small market, it's going to be easier. I want to make sure you heard me. I did not say if you were in a big market, this won't work and you can't do it. I'm saying that it's going to be harder, and the revenues, therefore also the marketing dollars you have available, are going to be very relevant. Now, here's the wrong question that people always ask me when they want to get interested and start thinking about doing radio. They say to me, how much budget do I need to get started? It's not the right question. The right question is, how much can you spend without immediate returns? Now, I'm getting into this area of setting expectations, and I want you to know that if you think you're going to spend money on radio and get an immediate return, you might be right. And also, you might be wrong. In fact, you need to plan on being wrong, because as I'll talk about as I go through this webinar, we want to look at radio as a branding slash farming activity. And I'll talk about that in more detail, but you need to be thinking right now, how much money can you spend without immediate returns? You say, well, what do you mean? I don't want to spend any money without immediate returns. Okay, then it's not going to be a good fit for you, period. Well, what do you mean without immediate returns? When do the returns come? Well, sometime between 3 and 12 months is when you're going to start really getting into a rhythm with this, where you're going to get enough calls and enough business, and it's going to have enough lift on the other things that you're doing that it's going to make financial sense. So you might have to weather a period of somewhere between 1 to 3 to 6 to 9 months where the returns are either not very good or apparently not very good if you want to be involved with radio. You say, well, what do you mean, Rich? What do you mean apparently not very good? Why would it appear to be? Are you suggesting that it appears to not be good, but it actually is good? And the answer is absolutely 100%, unequivocally yes. And that's because a lot of the business that you're going to get from your radio campaigns is not going to be somebody calling you on the phone going, hey, I just heard you on WABC and I want to place an order. Can somebody please come over and sell me something? That is not typically how it happens. Now, it does happen like that sometimes, but more likely they're going to hear you on the radio, then they're going to hear you again and 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 again. And about a week or a month or 3 months later, when they actually have a need for whatever it is you're selling, they're going to say to themselves, I need new windows. Who should I call? Oh, I know. I'll call Square Oaks. I've been hearing them on the radio. They sound like a good company that knows what they're doing that I want to do business with. And then they go to Google and they type in Square Oaks, and then they go to your website and they fill out a form, and then you don't even know that they came from radio unless you ask. And even when you ask, sometimes they'll say, well, I looked you up on Google, because it's true. So there's some reporting issues with radio that you are going to have to just live with. In other words, you are not going to be able to track it as down to the penny as you are used to doing with some of your other, let's say, digital advertising methods, okay? And if that is a problem for you, and if you're super hung up on that, then I'm going to tell you right now, don't do radio, because it will infuriate you because of the lack of accurate trackability. Okay, that being said, let's press forward. Setting proper expectations. Like I said, hunting versus farming. Hunting is direct response advertising. I place an ad, somebody hears the ad, they call or go online, they become a lead, I run the lead, I make the sale, and I make money, and I repeat the process. This is not how you want to do your radio advertising. What you want instead, farming. This is branding and nurturing, okay? Almost everyone who's failed at radio advertising has tried to use it as a direct response tactic, okay? There's actually agencies out there that I will not name that service this industry who put a bunch of very hardcore direct response. Hey, if you need new gutters, call us right now and we'll give you this free gift card to go to Lowe's and get $200 of free crap. But you got to call us now. Oh, by the way, did you know that we were actually selling gutters? Because you probably didn't even know that. You probably wanted the stupid free gift card thing. We see this kind of stuff all the time, both television and radio. And I'm telling you that if you run direct response as strictly direct response, now there is a place and a time for direct response in radio advertising, but if you run it as strictly direct response, it is going to fail. And I don't want to be involved with you. I will not work with you as a client, because it will fail, and then you'll be mad and you'll be like, Rich, this doesn't work. I don't like you. This sucks. Radio's stupid. And I'll be like, dude, you're holding the golf club backwards. Of course it doesn't work. Come on. Setting expectations. You've got to look at radio as a farming activity. You're going to place the ad. People are going to hear it. They're going to hear it again and again and again. Then they're going to hear it again and again and again. Then next month more, and then the month after that more, and then the month after that more. And when they're ready, they are going to have confidence in you, because if you're executing your ads properly, which is what we're about to get to, then they're going to say to themselves, this is a company that I trust. This is a company I want to do business with. This is a company that I understand who they are and what they do and how they do it and why they're better and why they're different and what I can expect when I do business with them. And they're going to call you, but it might not be for 3 or 13 or 43 months. That's called farming. You plant the seed and then you nurture and then you harvest. That's the order. You don't put the seed in the ground and then scream at the ground, grow. Come on, mofo, grow. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. All right. You start running the buy one, get one free call, 40% off. Your lead cost is going to be too high. You're going to quit. Again, there is a time and a place for these direct response offers. I'll discuss that with you shortly. But on average, you need to do hunting. It takes more patience, pays off better in the long term. You want your ads to be based on identity, which is what we're about to get to here. Okay, I'm gonna not do that. I don't have time. Here's what I'll just show you this image here. You're throwing coins into the ground. This is an illustration for farming, and you're growing dollars. That's what we want this to be. It's a farming activity. Okay. Radio is a good fit, let's say, and you have the right mindset. So let's get started. How do we do this? Well, first thing, choose the right stations. Number 2, negotiate. Number 3, create awesome ads. We're going to spend a lot of time on creating awesome ads. All right. First, though, choosing the right stations. There are certain kinds of stations that are best for 45 to 65-year-old homeowners, which I happen to know through having done this forever. This is who you're trying to reach. 45 to 65-year-old homeowners. Yeah, but what about the millennials? Okay, this is probably not a good fit for millennials. And if your business is geared toward millennials, you are literally the first home improvement company that I've ever met that is geared towards millennials. I'm not saying that there aren't some out there that also, in addition to everything else, try to go after millennials, but I'm saying that the bread and butter of everybody that is listening to me right now is 45 to 65-year-old homeowners. And there's certain kinds of stations that work best. News and talk radio, okay? The news talk station, or some markets have just a strictly news station. Not all markets, some of the larger markets have news only. A lot of the smaller markets do not. Also oldies, adult hits. Now, when you hear oldies, a lot of people think, oh, geez, oldies, what is that, like Frank Sinatra? No. Frank Sinatra is stuff like from the 80s, and it's even starting to be 90s. Like Michael Jackson is oldies. I don't know if you realize that. If you don't, surprise, you're old. Guess what? All right, adult contemporary, this is going to be like your listen at work type station. It's going to be more leaning towards women, although not strictly women, but typically an adult contemporary station is going to lean about 55, 60% female. Keep that in mind. Classic rock, also older people that own homes, but also going to lean more towards males. Then you got to have a discussion with yourself that says, if I had to choose one, would I rather reach men or women? Now, you don't necessarily have to choose, because you can be on multiple stations, but you just need to understand that the station that you choose is going to determine what the audience is like. Now, each station can give us specific information that they've done. They've hired third-party companies to do research. So they know exactly what the breakdown is, what percentage of their audience is homeowners, what percentage of their audience has certain income levels, what percentage of their audience is male versus female. So all of this can be looked at on an individual station basis, but this is just generally speaking things that tend to make sense for you. Country is going to be a big question mark, because there are young country and older country, different types of country stations. So we would just have to look at those demographics. Religious programming actually tends to work pretty well for reasons that I don't want to go into right now. But we do got to choose the right stations. This is an example. This comes from a website called stationratings.com. This is an example for Houston, Galveston. It says up there ranks number 6. That means it's the 6th largest in the country. Population is 6.17, well, 6.2 million people. And I think that's people that are over either 12 years old or 6 years old. I can't remember. Then it also tells you what percentage of the population is Hispanic, 36% in the case of Houston, Black, 17%. It doesn't mention Asian. In some markets where there's Asians, it will, a significant number of Asians, it'll list that. So you can guess that the rest are probably Caucasian, okay? But this is just giving you an idea of the kinds of stations. So we've got up here at the top, KODA, adult contemporary, it's owned by media, shows you what their what their audience size was, and you can kind of go down and look. Okay, adult contemporary, adult hits, talked about that earlier. That's oldies, classic rock. So these 3 stations are something worth looking at. We get down here to country, we'd have to look at the demographics. Contemporary Christian, that's worth looking at. Spanish, regional Mexican. Okay, now if you're specifically trying to reach the Hispanic market, that's probably a good station. The overwhelming majority of the clients that I work with are not trying to reach the Spanish market, so those are ones that we tend to skip. Modern alternative rock, that's going to cater to younger people, usually not a good fit. Country, maybe, maybe not. CHR, that's another way of saying top 40, usually not a good fit for you. Adult, urban adult contemporary, again, you've got to look at your target market. If it's more African American, then that could be a fit. If it's not, then maybe not. Going down the list, you can see just more different kinds of stations. Just trying to give you a feel for what we do as an agency when we start working with a client. We go through this list, we find the stations that are potentially a good fit, and then we do what we call availing the market, where we go and we ask them for their prices so that we can get a feel for what those prices are. Then we start negotiating, okay? Let's talk about negotiating, but not just negotiating, negotiating well. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to negotiate radio, you have to speak a whole new language. It's going to have things like cost per thousand, CPM, CPP, cost per point, frequency, cum, reach, all of these terms that you probably are not very familiar with. You may have heard of some of these terms in some of your past dealings with radio stations, but even those of you who are more familiar with these probably aren't familiar enough with them to really be able to negotiate well with the radio stations. Again, you have to remember, these folks are professionals. I work with these people. I've been working with them for 25 years now. I will tell you this, overwhelmingly, these are good people that are professional people that sincerely want you to do well. Think about this. If they sell you a package, but it doesn't work well and you quit, then that doesn't really help them because they're looking for ongoing long-term customers. So what I'm trying to help you do here, contractors, and here's what I'm trying to put the two of you together, the sales rep with maybe an agency like Level 10 Contractor in the middle with the contractor. I'm trying to set expectations properly, help you understand how to negotiate properly so that you get a good deal with the proper expectations so that it works for everybody long term. If it's not a win-win, then it's going to be a lose for somebody. Now, here's some rookie mistakes that I see all the time. If I go to somebody and they say, oh yeah, we're already buying our own radio, I can predict with 99% accuracy that they are making this mistake. First mistake, negotiating the cost per spot. So here's what they'll do. They'll get a proposal from the radio station. It'll say, oh, we're going to give you, let's say, I'm just making this up hypothetically off the top of my head. It'll say, we're going to give you 50 spots for $2,000. And then the business owner, thinking that he or she is a great negotiator, will say, 50 spots, $2,000. So they'll try to either up the number of spots or they'll try to lower the amount of money. So they might say, for instance, well, I don't want to do 50 spots for $2,000. I want 75 spots for $2,000. And I'll tell you this, the radio rep, if they have half a brain, and I know they do, they'll say, great, no problem. And then what they're going to do is give you a bunch of spots that don't necessarily have a lot of value, but because you don't know any better and you're judging the quality of the buy based on the number of spots, you're not really getting a lot more value for that money that you just negotiated. Or you might go to them and say, hey, I don't want to pay $2,000 for 50 spots. I'll give you $1,500 for those 50 spots. Anytime you're negotiating a price versus a price per spot or a price for a bank of spots, you're going to lose because you don't understand what the cost per thousand. Remember I talked about CPM, cost per thousand. If you don't know how much bang you're getting for the buck, you can't, you're flying blind. It's like flying an airplane in cloud cover and there's a mountain ahead and you don't see it. Boom, you hit the mountain, you're toast. You've got to understand how to actually negotiate this. And I'm not suggesting that the radio reps are going to take advantage of you. I'm suggesting that if you don't know what you're talking about, they can give you any kind of package that makes you happy and it'll still work for them, but not necessarily to your best advantage, okay? Here's another rookie mistake, trying to save 15% by not hiring an agency. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's how it works. The industry is set up to where agencies get a 15% discount, and that's ostensibly their pay for doing the work to get you on the radio, okay? 15%. So in other words, if you spend $10,000 on the radio, they're going to bill the agency $10,000. The agency is going to get $10,000 from you, and then they're going to pay the station $8,500, and they're going to keep the $1,500 as their payments, 15%. This is industry standard. Nobody's doing anything weird or slimy or dishonorable here. It's just how the industry works, and it's fine. But here's the problem: is when a company talks to a rep, and I've seen this happen many, many times. The rep will say, "Oh, well, we'll sell directly to you, and we'll also give you the agency discount." Now, this is just a negotiation ploy on the station's part. We'll give you, so instead of $10,000, we'll just charge you $8,500. Okay, now I want you to hear me very carefully right now. And radio station reps who are on here, I know that you're on here. I knew coming in that you were going to be on here, so I want to be respectful to you, but I also want the business owners to understand, okay? If you do not have a fluent, experienced agent working for you, the likelihood that you're going to negotiate the best deal on behalf of your company is approximately zero. It's approximately zero. And it's not because the radio reps are disreputable or they're trying to screw you over, but in a negotiation, everybody is trying to protect their own best interest. And if a rep can negotiate a higher price deal, then they're going to make more money as a rep. That's just common sense. Okay, so it's player versus player, and I want you to understand that a qualified, experienced agency can save you far more than 15% that you're paying them by going in and actually negotiating based on the metrics and understanding the language. Okay, this is a huge rookie mistake. I've seen it 1,000 times. It never turns out well. Your focus should always be on the cost per thousand. This is my opinion. Others may disagree with me on this. I've been doing it this way for 25 years. I think my clients' results speak for themselves, okay? I could show you case study after case study. I've got a client in California, named to be withheld, that we took over about 3 years ago, their TV and radio buy, and we were able to go in there and improve that by, I'm not sure how to quantify this. We lowered the overall buy from, I'm going on memory here, I think it was $1.7 million. We lowered it down to about $1.3 million. This is radio and TV combined. So a decrease of $400,000, let's say, 1.7 to 1.3. And I know these are big numbers that scare some of you, but this is a very large company, okay? And the cost per thousand went down by almost half. I want you to think about that for a minute. So if the cost per thousand goes down by almost half, when you're lowering the amount that you're spending, here's what happens. You get far more spots, far more bang for your buck. And this was a company that had somebody in their office who was the quote unquote marketing person that was managing these buys. They were getting absolutely destroyed across the board, probably 12 different stations, and they didn't even know it. It's common. It's really, really common. I want you to understand this. That's why I'm pausing here to make sure you get it, okay? All right, cost per thousand. How much does it cost to reach 1,000 people? I talked about this earlier. Goal should be about $5 to $10 based on adults 18 plus. Okay, that's the target range for cost per thousand. Now we are seeing cost per thousands going up over the last couple of years. In fact, we've done some new clients recently where I've seen CPMs in the 40s, 60s. I even saw one that was over $100. I almost had a heart attack. I immediately called the station and said, yeah, this is never happening. It's like paying $300,000 for a Camry that should be $30,000. But, you know, it is supply and demand. It's a supply and demand game. And you've got to understand how to do this. Frequency should be around 2.5. Here's what that means. That means the average person that hears your spots will hear it 2.5 times per week. Now, you might have to play the spot 15, 20, 30 times to get this frequency. But again, this goes under the header of language that you're probably not fluent in that you need to understand. But I'm just kind of throwing it out there to give you a feel for what it is. Okay, let's move on. I want you to know this. I've got a specific section on station selection and negotiation. It's covered in detail in my book, Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. Don't go to Amazon and buy it though, because you might win a copy at the end of this webinar. Hang on. All right, now the most important part. This is where we're going to spend the rest of the time, creating awesome ads. I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can because I need you to understand the philosophy and the thinking of how this works. You can't just say, well, write an awesome ad. So let's go through this. I'm going to start with Donkey Kong. This is what I used to play when I was a kid. I was 12. I'd go to Taco Bueno and play this all day long for free because you could actually lift up the face plate on the top. I had a little teeny arm. I could stick it in there and I could push this button for free credits. Well, I was delighted to find out, let's see, about 15 years later, I got a client that built video game cabinets and I was charged with doing their marketing. And here's what they told me. They told me that the thing that made their video game cabinets better than anybody else's, and please forgive me for going outside of the industry, but this is important. They said the thing that makes our video game cabinets different is that we use what's called dowel rod construction. And you can see an illustration of this on your screen right now. It's where they countersink holes into both sides of the wood, and then they put a dowel rod in there, secure it with high industrial strength wood glue. And this makes their cabinets much stronger than all of their competitors. I said, great. How many dowel rods do you put in each cabinet? And they looked at me. This was when the relationship was new. They said, well, we don't know. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't know? They said, well, we never counted. And I said, well, who knows? And they said, well, it's a guy named Dan. Well, who's Dan? Well, Dan's the guy that drills the holes. Oh, okay. So Dan probably knows how many dowel rods are in there. Great. So we asked Dan to come up to this meeting and we said, hey, Dan, how many dowel rods are in each of these cabinets? And he goes, I don't know. I never counted. Okay, can you please go count Dan? Dan came back. He counted the number of dowel rods that were in each video game cabinet. Again, let me show you. This is what the video game cabinet looks like when it's, got graphics on it and stuff. Here's what he told me, 172 dowel rods. I said, great, that's amazing. That is a great story. Let me ask you this. How many dowel rods do your competitors put in theirs? Expecting to hear a much smaller number than 172. And here's what they said. They looked at me like I was crazy and they said, what are you talking about? Nobody uses dowel rod construction, zero. Literally nobody else does this. Everybody else's cabinets have zero. And I thought, interesting. And we looked at their ad, HS27 cabinet. Now this is back in the 90s, okay? So you have to look at it, it's black and white. This was an ad that went into an industry magazine. And I want you to look right here. I'm just blowing these bullet points up. If you look right here, built with both cleat and dowel construction. They buried this massively important element of what makes their cabinets better into the third bullet point at the end, dowel construction. And I thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So we created an ad. Here's what it looks like. This is back in the 90s. It's not very beautiful, but here's what it said. 172 hardwood dowels reinforce every Dynamo HS27 cabinet. Other brands unexplainably have zero. It's no accident the Dynamo Systems cabinets have an average lifespan of over 2.5 times longer than the leading competitor. That's because they're engineered to withstand the kind of punishment that video games are prone to in arcades, restaurants, family fun centers. Kicking, shaking, punching, jostling, flat out manhandling that is bound to take place. So instead of hoping that people treat the games easier, we just build them stronger with hardwood dowel construction, blah, 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 172, super reinforce the entire cabinet. If you want to know more, fill out this form. And guess what happened when we started telling the story with power, precision, and passion? Here's what happened. Systems cabinet sales exploded because people went, oh, I get it. The cabinet's better. It's not just more expensive, so that sucks. I don't want to spend more money on the same stupid cabinet as your competitors. Why would I give more money for your cabinet than I would for their cabinet? Because they're all the same. Well, guess out. It turns out, Sherlock, they're not all the same. They're massively different. Ours are massively better, but nobody ever told the story. And when you don't tell the story, guess what happens? Nobody freaking knows. And then people don't buy and you wonder why your ads don't work. And then you get pissed and say, well, radio doesn't work. Meanwhile, you're holding the golf club backwards or upside down, okay? We got to learn how to tell the story. Most marketing is full of platitudes and prices. You can read this on your screen. Platitudes, not good. Best products, family service, family owned. We've been in business since 1431 BC. It's just dumb. Or prices and offers. Buy one, get one free, 40% off the window, 0% financing. There is a time and a place for that. Like I've said 4 times now, that was number 5. But if that is the main thing that you're talking about all the time on your advertising, that all you're doing is training your audience to buy from you because you're cheaper. Here's a good question for you. Are you cheaper? And the answer almost certainly is no, we're not expensive. Based, and you put that message out there over the course of a month, and then 6 months, and then 12 months, and then a year, and 2 years, and 5 years, and after a while, everybody says, well, if I want cheap crap, I'll call them. And then your sales guy goes out there and you're not cheap, you're expensive, and now there's a disconnect and you're wondering why your closing ratio is 21% instead of 39%. It's because you put a massive disconnect into the market, and it was your fault because you told them the wrong story. You end up sounding like Charlie Brown's brother, okay? Remember this, wah, 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 wah. We'll go on, okay? Here's what we want instead: identity. Words, phrases, and images articulated with power, precision, and passion instantly, definitively communicate who you are, how you're different, why you're better, what customers can expect when they do business with you, okay? Now, I don't have time to go through this in a ton of detail, but I want to give you some examples. I'm going to speed past this quickly. The 5 pillars of identity. This is what we're going to base your identity on: your products, your workmanship, your bedside manner, your core values, your company's culture and reputation. These are all things that we take into account when we create a campaign. Because think of what we're going to do with radio. We're not just running an ad trying to get as much business out of the market this instant. That's direct response. I told you in setting expectations, that is not what you want. Here's what we're doing. We're having a conversation over time with the audience. Let me say that again. We're having a conversation, a dialogue over time with the audience. If all you're telling them is that you're cheaper and that you're 30% off this week if you call because it's freaking Memorial Day or something, then that's what they're going to know about you. But if you start telling them about your products and your workmanship and your bedside manner, how you treat people, your company's core values, your reputation and your culture, then people are going to start to decide and understand and want to do business with you because they understand that you are the kind of company that they want to do business with, because they, here comes the big words, the T word, ready? They trust you. They trust you. That's what we're aiming for, okay? Got to communicate with power, precision, and passion if you want to convert and convince the jury, okay? So let me give you some examples here. I'm going to play some ads, and then I'm going to give you some case studies, and then I'm going to give you a chance to win the book and to potentially have us help you do this. So let's take a look at these. I'm going to move my microphone into position so you can hear these better. I'm going to actually start here. I want you to listen carefully to this ad, and I want you to think about it. Here we go. Whoops, that is not what I meant to do.
One of the most common questions we get about kitchen and bathroom remodeling is, how much does it cost? But the question you should be asking is, how much does it weigh? How much does it weigh? Actually, you can tell a lot about the quality of a kitchen or bathroom by how much the faucet weighs. At Jericho, we only use high-quality Moen faucets. They weigh about 10 pounds each. They're solid metal, they look fantastic, and they'll last forever. Other remodelers save money by using off-brand plastic faucets that only weigh about 1.5 pounds. 10 pounds versus 1.5 pounds. If you want a remodeling job that weighs right, call Jericho. Find us online at
Whoops. Let's go back to the very beginning of the webinar. I said, when you're 10 years old, imagine yourself in your house. How did you feel? Imagine yourself in love. How did you feel? Imagine your best vacation ever. How did you feel? When you write a radio ad that is based on your company's identity, and you tell a story at an elite expert level, like you just heard an example of, here's what happens. It is so much more powerful than any other advertising medium, because we're tapping in to the visual image creator that exists in everybody's mind. And when they create the image of what you're saying in their own mind, it is extremely specifically customized to their own personal experience and emotion. So when we say, how much does it weigh? We use Moen faucets that weigh 10 pounds. They are imagining what that looks like in their mind, and it is extraordinarily specific to their personal experience of what a faucet looks like. When we say it's a cheap faucet that weighs 1.5 pounds, they can create that image on their own mental palette. This is why radio is so incredibly powerful if you know how to do it properly and tell stories properly, because you are tapping into that dynamic image maker that taps into the emotion and feeling that is associated with these words that you're putting into that, onto that palette. Let's go to another example here, cutting corners.
90% of remodelers cut corners by using cheap products. They figure you'll never even know. For example, most remodelers use a cheap sand-based grout when installing tile. It only costs $10 a gallon, but it's not waterproof, so water seeps through. And it's not flexible, so it cracks, which lets even more water seep through. I'm not kidding. They use grout that's not waterproof in bathrooms. Hello? Mold and mildew, anyone? And it's not just grout. They cut corners on fixtures, cabinets, granite, stain, even nails. Call Jericho instead.
A way to audit the mental image that came onto your own personal brain when he's talking about grout that cracks and causes mold. Let's see, for sake of speed, I'm going to move to this one. Now, this is an ad that is based on a core value in community service. Take a listen to this. Imagine that you heard the ad about how much does it weigh, and then the next day you hear the ad about cutting corners, and now the third day you hear this ad in the rotation.
When you use Jericho to remodel your kitchen or bathroom, you're doing more than just improving your home. You're also improving lives. It's true. We donate a large part of our profits to charity, including the Global Orphan Project, based in Kansas City. Their website is goproject.org. Those funds pay for food, schooling, and other necessities in Haitian orphanages. One of the most important things these sacred funds pay for is mamas. Mamas are women who live in the orphanages full time and nurture, feed, and care for these kids. They're not the kids' mothers, but their love for the children is so great that they've earned the title of mama. Each mama is responsible for 10 orphans, and for 2015, Jericho is actively supporting 39 mamas in Haiti. That's 390 orphans that now have a mama to love and care for them.
That silence is me letting that sink in to your brain about how powerful this is if you execute it properly. Now, I've been telling you all along that there is a time and a place for direct response. So we can run those ads, maybe those 3 ads that we just ran, that you just heard, will run for 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. Then for 1 week, we might come in with a sale that sounds something like this.
If you've been thinking about remodeling your master bathroom, today is the day to call Jericho. That's because we're offering 2 valuable bathroom remodeling upgrades worth $5,000 for free, but only if you call today by 7 p.m. First, we'll upgrade your bathroom to a deluxe shower spa or jetted tub, a $2,000 value for free. Then we'll also upgrade your bathroom vanity to beautiful, stunning granite, also for free. That's $5,000 worth of upgrades for free, but only if you call.
Okay, so you get the idea of how that sounds. Now, I've been working with this company, Jericho, since 2015. That's, 8 years? Something like 8 years now. And they were running ads like the one that you just heard, very similar to that for years, probably the 7 or 8 years since they started the company to 2015. And the owner, John, who you just heard on the commercial, called me and said, Rich, when we run these ads, we get a good response and then it trails off. Then we create a different ad with a different offer and it works okay and then it trails off. And we're having trouble getting people to continue to engage with us. We need to tell our story. Now, you've already heard what that sounds like. Now, let me go through a couple of case studies here and then we're going to be done. Okay, so hold on with me for just another 5 minutes or so, maybe 7, something like that. Square Oaks Home Improvement. This is the little teeny $500,000 company that's up in Appleton, Wisconsin that I told you about earlier. We started them on radio on January 9th this year with a monthly budget of $5,800 spread over 3 stations. In the first month on air, they did $65,000 in sales, and they're adding more stations right now. They're moving into Green Bay, which is just up the road from them. I want you to listen to these ads. Remember, small company, every company's identity is specific to them. Therefore, the ads that we run are going to be specific to the company. We don't just generically say, oh, here's your window ad. Listen to this thing. You're going to be blown away. You're going to understand why it works.
Rick Rachel here from Square Oaks Home Improvement. Did you know that most of the big replacement window companies in the area are owned by East Coast private equity firms? They have big quotas to make big sales at big prices so that their big bosses on the East Coast can earn big fat profits. Square Oaks is owned by me, Rick Rachel, a disabled vet living right here in the Fox Valley. We use the highest quality windows, we slow down to install them right, and we back them up with the best warranties in the business. And I don't have any East Coast bosses breathing down my neck to hit those big quotas so they can make their big profits. We sell the same or better quality windows for 20 to 50% less than they do. That's money that stays in your pocket. It's really simple. Better quality, better experience, and better prices. Go to squareoaks.com to learn more.
Okay, one more. We'll listen to sales manipulation. Check this out.
Rick Rachel here from Square Oaks Home Improvement. Let me teach you how some of the biggest window companies in town manipulate you into buying their overpriced windows. It's all about getting the agreement and then using it against you. For example, they'll talk to you about energy efficiency and then ask, is energy efficiency important to you? Of course you say yes. Then they say, would you agree our windows are energy efficient? Again, you say yes. Then they do that 10 more times. When they finally ask you to buy, if you hesitate or say no, they'll say, but I thought you said energy efficiency was important to you, right? On and on. About half the people just crack. They get talked into buying. Not at Square Oaks. We show you the window, answer your questions, and then step back and let you decide.
Okay, I think you get the idea. KMP Remodeling, we've been going with these guys for a little over a year. They're spending $9,400 a month average. They're on 4 stations. Sales have increased significantly, expanding into other markets. Let's listen. Well, we'll skip this one. We've got to make some choices here. Joyland Roofing, about a year on the air with these guys, spending about $8,500 on 2 stations. Sales are up. Radio's working well. We're expanding into TV next year. Check out this ad.
John from Joyland Roofing here. Quick question for you. Would you eat at a restaurant that makes you pay half your bill before they serve you? Or take your car to a mechanic that makes you pay $500 or $1,000 before they'll even pop your hood? Of course not. So why pay a roofer a deposit before they've replaced your roof? You shouldn't. And at Joyland Roofing, you won't. Instead of requiring 30 to 50% down like most roofers, we don't accept a dime until the job is 100% complete and you say you're satisfied.
Okay, you get the idea. Clemens Home Solutions, small company, and not a small company, $8 million company, but in a small market, Muncie, Indiana. So they're only spending $2,000. February, highest sales month ever. Green Fox Windows, these guys are up in Canada, spending $12,000 a month. They're on 14 stations. We just added 6 new stations. It's working so well for them. I don't have time to play their ads. Hutcherson Construction, this is probably one of the bigger success stories. Started just in January. They're spending $7,700 a month on 3 stations. In February, they had their highest month ever, 158 leads versus 52 a year ago, February 2022. $274,000 in radio sales, January to March. Listen to this ad. Get a feel for why this is working.
Ever notice how most people never leave online reviews unless they're really mad? And they want the entire world to know how bad their experience was? Nick from Hutcherson Construction here. And believe it or not, we only have 5-star reviews. No 4 stars, no 3 or 2 or 1-star reviews. Only 5 stars. I'm serious. Google Hutcherson Construction, click on the reviews, and you'll see that our lowest review is 5 stars. Think about that. We built decks. Contractors are notorious for over-promising and under-delivering. And yet, in 8 years, not a single review less than 5 stars. We treat customers right, we do what we say, we finish on time, and we charge a fair price. We also build the most gorgeous, durable, amazing decks you've ever.
These guys are in Kalamazoo, Michigan. One more ad and then we'll be wrapping up here.
Do you think it matters if the guy who's out there building your deck cares about his job? This is Nick at Hutcherson Construction, and I'm here to tell you, it matters a lot. Most decking companies hire the cheapest subcontractors they can find, give them no training, offer no benefits, and then fire them the second they don't have enough work to keep them busy. They can barely pay their bills, they hate their jobs, and that's the guy out there building your deck. At Hutcherson, our installers are the lifeblood of our company. They're actual W-2 employees who we pay well and give full benefits. We keep them busy all year long, and they love their jobs. It costs a bit more to treat people right, but just wait until you see your gorgeous new deck, built with love by employees who love their jobs. To get started, visit.
Okay, so I think you get the idea here. What we're trying to do is tell the story with power, precision, and passion. And I hope you notice that all of those ads from all of those different companies were completely individualized to those companies. Now, there are some themes that can run from company to company that are similar, but overall, these are very unique ads based on exactly what it is that makes these companies different, makes them better, and helps people understand what they can expect when they do business. There's no wonder that they're having just banner sales based on putting that message out there. Now, let me tell you how we work with clients. If you're interested, we charge a fee of $3,000 per month to manage everything, or 15% of the ad spend. If the ad spend goes over $20,000 a month, then the fee goes up. Evaluate the as part of this project. We try to determine which stations are the correct stations. We negotiate with the ones that are likely going to be the best fit, that we're going to get the best deals. We script all the ads, we oversee the production of all the ads, and then we manage the station relationships and handle all the billing and auditing that goes through us. In other words, we're checking to make sure that the stations are running what they said they were supposed to be running. This is how we work with clients. Think about this. If this is something that makes sense for you to explore, then what I want to do is invite you to explore your media options. All you've got to do is get your smartphone out and hit the QR code, or you can go to level10contractor.com/media consult and you can fill out the form there. Now, this is going to be actually setting an appointment to meet with me personally, where I'll talk this through with you. We'll find out if it's a good fit. We'll see if the conditions are right in your situation to explore that, to do this. And if so, then we can take the next steps if it's appropriate. Now, if you're a media rep that's on this webinar, if you are interested in potentially working with Level 10 Contractor to do webinars like this one, or potentially live events in your local market to convince local advertisers to go on the radio, then you can also use this same code, the same QR code, fill out the same appointment request, meet with me, and we can discuss how we can potentially make this work for you, your station, in your market. So either which way, if you're a contractor who's interested in getting on the radio and doing, generating leads and doing everything that we just talked about on this webinar, then this is going to be a good opportunity for you to talk to me personally. Again, if you're a radio rep, I'd also be happy to talk to you about how to take this similar approach of educating the marketplace about radio, showing the successes, helping them understand what the parameters are to make it work. Then that's something that I can do and talk to you about as well. All right, so we're going to be done, but before we hang up and say goodbye, it is time to give away the book. I'm going to give this book to 3 people, and Steve Rennenkamp, you are not eligible because you already have my book, but let's see who's on here. And tell you what, we're going to do it the democratic way, which is the first 3 people that say, I want the book, will get the book. Right now, go into the chat and type, I want the book. Literally the words, I want the book. And the first 3 will be the ones who get the book. Let's see who that is. I got to find the thing that shows me. Okay, here it is. Bree, you are not eligible. Okay, let's see. Bree is not eligible because she works for Level 10 Contractor. Okay, I have it here, and I just got to make this thing pop out so I can actually see it. Well, let's see. Annette, you are a book winner. Wow, why is this giving me such a hard time? Let's see, I'm gonna pop it out. There we go. Oh, geez, my gosh, look at all you people that want the book. Sorry, not everybody can have the book. Okay, here's who actually gets the book. Number 1 is going to be, okay. Wow, this is really weird. Steve, no. Okay, here we go. JC Swan, Joe Ellis, and I said Annette could have it even though she wasn't the third, so I'm going to give it to Annette. So JC Swan, Joe Ellis, and Annette. You guys are going to get the book. Everybody else who wants the book, go over to Amazon.com and you'll find the book either on Kindle for something like $13 or hard copy for something like $23. I don't really know how much it costs. But thank everybody for participating. If you'd like to talk to me about doing radio, please fill out the form. I'll go back to the QR code and I'd be happy to talk to you. You just got to set an appointment that's mutually convenient for you and me, and I will be talking to you then. Thanks so much for coming today. I'll tell you what, while you're still on here, sorry to those who didn't win the book. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to stick around and answer any questions. So please ask any questions if you want. I know a lot of people probably hung up, but let's see. Let's see if we have any questions. Can you talk about why religious radio stations work well? I am thinking it might be a good idea. The answer to that is because there tends to be a correlation between religious radio listeners and people who are sort of family type oriented conservative people that honestly tend to be homeowners and have money. So that's the only thing that I can think of. I know this, it does seem to work. Let's see. Other questions? Any other questions? Nope. I don't have any other questions. Any other questions? Last chance. This was great. Awesome. Thank you. Excellent. Oh, Missy, how you doing? All right. That's going to be it then. Thanks you for attending. I will talk to you, I don't know, soon. Bye now.